All right. Okay. Are you ready?
Do people call you Nathan or Nate?
A lot of people call me Nate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think because it's shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one do you prefer?
I'm fine. My brother used to call me Thin.
Oh, really?
Thin. Not
Oh my
this
God.
one. Another
Oh,
one.
the other one. How many brothers are you?
We're 5. Yeah.
Any girls? No.
Nope.
Your
Yeah.
mom is an amazing woman.
Yeah, it's like I think she tried. They obviously been trying.
Yeah. After the 5th time, I think they were
First time
like,
nah, okay, it's fine. It's not gonna work.
yeah.
And you?
Just my brother and I. So boy, girl. My whole family is just boy, girl, boy, girl.
Okay. Are you like the first one?
I am the first. No, I'm the second. I feel like I'm the firstborn. I feel like, no,
Okay.
I have a brother. He's 28 this year.
Oh.
So we have an 8-year age gap. Yeah. He's
Eight?
turning 29.
Really? Wow. So they waited that long for you.
Yeah, I think they always said they wanted one child.
Okay.
But I was obviously too great later on. They were like, we have to have a second one. And then I came. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We're very close though.
Is
Very.
it? Nice. Okay, so we're gonna start. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Nate.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
Yeah.
glad to be here.
How do you pronounce your name? Is it Kayla or Kayla?
You know, it depends who's talking to me. I would say Kayla.
Kayla.
But if you say Kayla,
It's
I
okay.
mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. So just to make the introductions, so you're a content creator, you're an author, and you're also the ambassador of the AfrifoodLinks, Namibia.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very exciting.
Yeah. When did your content creation journey start?
Whew. I think I've been making content creation for, I calculated it actually the other day, 6+ years.
6.
I started officially, I think, when I was 14. I went to Cape Town for my brother's graduation. He graduated from animation. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I took a camera that had been lying and I decided I'm going to be a vlogger. And so here I am carrying this massive camera, and that's kind of where it started. But now I use my phone more because it's easier. But yeah.
Yeah. So you started at 14.
Yes.
Were you posting those videos anywhere? Or you just
Yeah.
kept them?
So mostly at that moment, YouTube. So I always, obviously I grew up, 2000s kids grew up watching YouTubers, and everybody wanted to be a YouTuber, including me. And so I decided, why don't I document my life that one day I can look back? And that was like posting it on YouTube and then going back and seeing, oh, this is little Kayla, this is how much she's grown. And that was kind of the idea, to have a digital video diary of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was on Instagram. I started posting more Instagram aesthetically pleasing photos. And it just became a thing of then moving from YouTube and Instagram into the TikTok space. I wasn't initially on TikTok, but I just saw everyone was on TikTok and I was like, okay, let me try this,
Yeah.
you know? And that's where short form content, now I make longer content, but in that time, 30-second videos, now it's up to a minute. And so that's kind of where the journey of my social media came from.
Okay. Well, that's nice. I think on the point of documenting yourself, when we have videos of when we were kids, like
Yeah.
babies, like it's a video of me coming out of the hospital. And
Yeah.
it's cool when you look at that and you're like, okay, if my parents could think of doing stuff like that, it would
Yeah.
be interesting if I were to document every single aspect of my life.
100%. I love that idea. That video is just amazing when you watch it back. I remember there's this video, speaking, you reminded me of something. There's this
Yes.
video of me. I think I am maybe at this stage 11 or 10. And I took my parents' phone and I was like, hi world, welcome to my channel. And I mean, that was before I actually thought of it. And my parents love that video. I don't think the world will ever see that video, maybe one day.
Yeah.
But that is a very precious video to me because it's like me as a kid, and you want to look back and see those videos. And I think same with your parents, you know,
Yeah.
I think they wish someone would document their upbringing and just look back.
Yeah. How was that journey morphed for you? Because I'm sure when you start with something, the more you do, the more inspiration you get, and the more you want to keep increasing. I think I've seen a few sort of like film projects that you directed, right?
Yeah.
How did you get to doing that?
Okay, that's really interesting. I think as a creative, you do a lot of different things. And so for me, it was YouTube. And then figuring out, I think at the beginning, like my mom always laughs, like we were trying to make our makeshift lights and studios and all
Yeah.
these things, but all you had to do was initially pick up a camera and start. And so what I decided is, from YouTube and learning all the things, learning a lot, then film came. And so there was this opportunity. I remember I was in my grade 12 year. I was at St. George's, and my Afrikaans teacher, he knows that I love this realm of creative and videography and all these things. And so he dropped a paper on my table, and he said there is a competition in South Africa. It's called Film at South Africa. And a very prominent school in South Africa is hosting it, Paul Roos Gymnasium. And so he said they want to do this competition where they have schools film and submit short films. And at that stage, I looked at it and I thought, we don't even have a drama department at school. We had nothing.
Wow, okay.
And so I said, and being me, my friends always know, I am spontaneous and I will jump into it. So I wrote up a script very quickly and I posted it online. I submitted it and I didn't think much of it at the time because I was like, this is the first time I'm doing something like this. I had recently before that written a book, and so I took that to screenwriting, and it's similar but also different. You know, you're writing, you have to say Anna says this, and so when I was pitching this idea, it was probably the last night before submissions with you. Don't do that, please, like before a week in advance. And so I did it and I got a call back, and here I am directing, writing, even costume designing. You know, you have to run around with amazing group of talent. But my school didn't even know that we had such talented individuals, because we had done for 100-year celebration, we had done a theater play at the NTN. And that's where I knew that some of these kids I knew. I was like, I saw you act. You can't lie to me and say you didn't. I had a videographer that had never picked up a camera, but he was willing and he was trying. I had one of my friends, Michael, do the editing for me, and we submitted the film. And I was very proud of that film. And then last year, I submitted the film to the Namibian Film Commission because they were having Film Week, and they picked up the film and they said, we're going to screen it. And I was like, what even? So that's kind of how YouTuber goes to doing short film filmmaking and then screenwriting and directing stuff, where I'm usually in front of the camera. This time I was behind the camera, and it was fun. I enjoy it.
It was fun. I think the movie's name is like Colors something.
Yeah, The Art of Colors.
The Art of Color. Yeah, I kind of watched it. It's on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
Thank you.
It's funny that you've never done directing before, and that's like your first project.
Yeah,
it's really good for a first project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think now that I look back, I'm like, oof. Okay, I see. Obviously, you know, as a creative, you look back at your projects and you're like, but you know what? They're your first projects, and there's something I will always be proud of.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Were you much of a movie person? Because obviously, before you make something, you need to have watched or have an idea of how the movie should be looking like.
No, movies are a big part of me. I mean, I'm somebody that would watch a movie over and over and over. My parents hated. They would take me, you know, back in the day. I'm still relatively young, but you know, you would go to Mr. Video or Logo, and then you would rent out
cassettes.
Exactly, cassettes, DVDs. Back in the day, even video games, you know. And so I would go, and every day I would take out the same movies. My parents would be like, "Why are we bringing the same movies to watch?"
What was that? What was one of those movies?
People will laugh at me, but I really enjoyed the animation, the Bee Movie.
The Bee Movie.
The Bee Movie. It's like about a bee.
Yeah.
And the honey.
It's an old movie.
Oh, it's such an old movie. That movie, for me, I just think visually and the comedy and just for animation, I just thought it was so beautiful. And growing up, I watched movies and shows, and I always wanted to be an actress. I think that was always my first passion. I would perform anywhere, whether it would be in my living room. My parents would know. I would throw on I made them drive once around Cape Town looking for a Hannah Montana wig, because I was for certain I was going to be like Hannah Montana. I was going to be on Disney Channel and I would be a child actor.
How old are you at this point?
Sure, I was 9, and I was
dragging them around.
I made them drive everywhere. There was one where it said Sharpay from High School Musical wig or whatever. I was like, no, I want a Hannah one. And so I always had a passion for movies and for getting into that sphere. Obviously, the older I've gotten, I'm now studying architecture, but I always know that a passion will always be there. And one thing my mom said was like, find something that you love, and I do love architecture, to fund your dream. And I know that one day I will fully then be able to. I always believe that you can do both. You never have to in life choose one or the other. You can have both.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm trying to show people, is that this could be like the field you're in, but you can also do this, you know. And that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to get across.
Nice. I like how you keep bringing your parents into everything. It's because I've noticed some of my friends, or most of the people that when they get older, that excel in a certain thing they do, like a musician or whatever. If you trace back when they started, it's like, I was 4 years old, my dad gave me the guitar.
Yeah.
I was 2 years old, my dad was playing the piano every day, and then he brought me into the room. He started putting my hands on the keyboard, you know. So would you say the integration of your parents sort of like helping you excel in the things that you do? Because sometimes you'd see kids want to do like writing or singing, and the dad is like, no, go and study, you know? They don't even give you a chance to sort of like explore that version of yourself.
No, 100%. I always say the success that I have reached in my life is thanks to my parents. But not everybody has supportive parents, and I can't imagine where I would be without them, because they had always been yes. There was not even, oh no, we first have to see you. They were like, yes, we'll make a plan. Like, it was always like that for my parents. My mom is a writer. She's an author. So when I wrote my book at 17, she was a big part of that. She was pushing me. Hey, if she wasn't behind me telling me, this is the due date, so I need the first draft by this and the first draft. Nice. And she made me illustrate in a week. She was like, no, the book needs drawings. You can draw. I was like, but we have a week. She's like, come on, you can do it. And she always inspired me. She's such a motivational person. My dad is extremely knowledgeable. That's where my smarts and my knowledge come from, is because when I was little, he has a newspaper. It's like he's reading the Namibian, I take the Republican, and we just switch like that. I might even be looking at pictures, but I'm reading, you know, somewhere. And if we sit, he will ask me, how was your day? Then he's like, I heard this. Do you want to discuss this? And this is kind of where I've really started thinking about the world through my parents, because they have never said that you are too young. You know, it's always been, okay, you want to do it? You're passionate about it? Go for it. You know, we'll support you. And I mean, for me, I remember I went to 2019. I went to LA for the World Championships of Performing Arts, and I did acting there as one of my acts. And I mean, I knew some people that they couldn't afford to go, and their parents had just told them no, and they're so talented. And my parents said, we'll make a way, whether it is we take out a loan or we do this, but you're going to go and experience those things. And for that, I'm truly grateful. I mean, they've always told me, if I come up with a crazy idea, they're like, Kaylah, go for it. And for that, I am 100% grateful for them. And I do it, they know it's to make myself proud, but at the end of the day, it's also to make them proud for trusting me and giving me that. They've always given my brother and I that leash to go out in the world. And if we're getting a bit too, they'll tug it, you know. But that's how parents are. It's amazing. And for that, I am so grateful to them. They are really superstars.
No, I like that. I like the strategy that they undertake with you guys. And it's like, well, there's obviously a balance, you know, because there's a lot of passion that you want to do. But sometimes there's also sort of a restriction that you need to, in terms of school, for instance. You know, you can be passionate about something, but there's a balance where school also has its place.
100%. No. When I decided to study architecture, I was very much into the creative space at that point. I was doing YouTube. I had art on school. So I was very much into this. I could draw, I could write. So I was like, what am I going to study? You know, because if I could do it all, I would. And that's the thing sometimes about a creative person. If you are very multifaceted, you want to do everything. And I was that person. And so the one day I think I was sketching, and my teacher told me, you have a very steady hand. You're not a splash paint on a canvas and call it art. You're each line is purposefully done. And so I was like, I wasn't like the artist that would like, I'm very much about lines and still making a beautiful portrait or whatever. And then I one day watched a documentary. We played a documentary called, I think I might be wrong, but it's The Abstract of Art or The Art of Abstract. It's on Netflix. Amazing documentary. So if someone wants to go into a career in any art form, I recommend they watch that video, because in there, one of the episodes was about an architect, Biak Engels. And that's where I realized that architecture is more than just four walls. It's more than just a building. We are in a building right now, and the atmosphere created and all those things later on made me think, what happens if I go into this? Because yes, I'm an artist, but this is also very technical. And technically, I was not always like, but then I decided, let me challenge myself. If I go into graphic design or I go into videography, those are things I love, and I'll do them like this. I'll learn a lot, but I'll do them. But architecture has really allowed me to sit back and be like, whoa, okay, this is a different ball game, you know. And every day I learn something new. And architecture is more than just the building. People think it's you learn about buildings, and then true, but you learn about life and how people operate. It's a lot about people, because you're designing buildings for people.
A lot about people.
Yeah.
Household.
Household.
Yeah. And then when you say a lot about people, would you give an example?
So, like, for instance, whenever you're designing, right, you don't just design based on, okay, there's an empty space, I'm going to put a building up. No. So how you would look at it is the urban environment, okay? You look at how people walk past the space, right? You look at the building next to it. What view are you blocking of these people? Then you think about, okay, what does the client want? The client is the most important. They want to, if they have this vision in their head and the vision is kind of outrageous, you kind of have to bring it back, but also give them what they want.
Yeah.
And so you really have to learn people skills. That's the biggest thing. They don't tell architects, but it is people skills. Like, you have to deal with people. And so in that, it's like a house becomes a home because of the people that live in it. And so in architecture, it's the same. A building can stand there and have no character, but if it caters to the people, you bring the character because people love it. It's like, I know one architect here in Windhoek, Ricardo Michaels. What he does is, there's this amazing building in Kommersdal. It's a government building, and it's right next to a school. And the cool thing was, there was this tree that he had left there. He excavated a lot of the other stuff, but this tree specifically he kept. And I asked him, why keep the tree? And he said, before this building was here, these kids used to gather around this tree and wait for their parents or get a taxi. So what he did is he kept the tree and he put a bench there. And now the kids feel like they're integrated part of this building. And so that's kind of the idea. You make it about people. Architecture is about people.
Yeah.
And so that's
nice.
why.
It's interesting how you sort of like a creative person, and also architecture is a bit too meticulous. Everything is like, if you start a project, you need to finish it. There's this one thing, because I write as well, but I've sort of discovered that when you're creative, is you get excited about something specifically, and then you're so enthused, you're doing nothing, and then after a while that excitement dies because you see something else and you want to quickly jump. You want to jump ship. But now it's like, if you're a writer, for instance, you would find yourself that you have a bunch of drafts that you haven't finished. There's a bunch of drafts in you, and out of 20, maybe like one makes the cut, and then it has a finished book. But how do you blend that? Because as a creative, you just want to keep jumping onto stuff.
Yeah, no, I've had to learn very the hard way, I think, when it comes to that, because as a creative person, you jump. It's your brain is working it's just like, you see something and you're like, whoa, opportunity, or you see something and it's like, a light bulb goes on. But I have really had to, architecture has helped a lot with that, to Because when we're coming up even with a concept, right, we have 5 billion concepts in our heads, but we have to choose one. It's you cut the rest away and you focus on this one and you try to make this one the best one possible. And so I've taken that into my work and I've decided, okay, Kaylah, there's a time and there's a place for everything. Is this the time and the place to do this right now? Maybe not. Give it maybe a couple months, then we can jump on this. But it's always about, for me, I'm like, okay, focus. What am I doing now? Why do I have to do this now? This is why. And just sitting back and really reflecting. I think reflecting is super important for artists. You sit back and you think, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? And what is the outcome of this project or this thing that I want to do? And if you find that, I think you really, that idea of drafts, I know so many people, they ask me, how did you write? Like, how did you get this? Because I've been busy with this book for 10 years or 5 years. And I'm like, I wrote this book in 6 months. I wrote this book and I studied for my final examination and I did the illustrations. So I said, you have to give yourself a time. Timing, like planning, is the most important in anything you do. Because as artists, sometimes we're like, okay, we start with the project, but then plan it out and say, by this time, I want to finish this, by this time. It's like due dates. You give yourself due dates. And that's what I do in my head. I'm like, okay, Kaylah, you can't take forever on this. So put a date, make sure, even if you don't finish it by the date, you at least have held yourself accountable and have done most of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just how it is. I every day still have to be like, oh yeah, maybe I should do a to-do list, or maybe I should have a planner, because that helps. It really does, because in those moments my brain can run and then I get nothing done. You have 5 billion projects, you don't do one, or you do one half finished. So I think it's really about planning. I think planning is the essence that I would say.
Nice. I want to touch about your book, but firstly, like you mentioned, planning. I think the brain, someone mentioned that it's like a kid. You need to be a parent to your kid. The kids just want to do all the fun stuff, all the crazy stuff, but you kind of need to be that person that says, okay, relax, this is what we're doing.
True.
And also, like, the difference between a goal and a wish. It's like a wish is just like, no, I want to write a book. That's anyone can wish that, right? But the goal is like, okay, you want to write a book, but what are the tiny steps we need to do every single day? 100%. When is the book due? What's the due date? What are the deliverables? Everything.
And then
like
you
that.
turn your wish into the goal.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nice. What made you? Can you tell us a bit about the book? Our Story. It's on Amazon. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you write it?
So Our Story came, funny enough, I had always had this idea. It was probably one of my first kid books that I thought, like, I was young when I first initially had the wish, and then it became the goal. So I remember I was maybe, I think, grade 7, and I had been, every time I had an idea about a movie or a book, I still have on my, like, I've jotted everything down. So there are so much movies and so much scripts and things that I have written down, but I just need to come to them. And Our Story was one of them that I put there. And I remember in grade 8, my teacher, Ms. Steenkamp, she said, okay, so we are gonna write the first chapter of a book. And I saw this as the opportunity. And I remember I went scavenging. I made the book cover already when I was in grade 7. I made it like on, what is that thing, on Word, and I did the cover. It's literally similar to the cover I have now. And so what happened was, I wrote the first draft of the first chapter and I submitted it, and I got a good mark for it because I loved talking, and so I spoke about this book. And it was not until I think I turned 17, and my mom was having a workshop on how to write books, right? And she had this workshop, and it was like a master class, let's say. And I literally came to her and I was like, you haven't invited me to your masterclass. She's like, you want to come? And I was like, yeah, I want to try. I want to see. And I sat there, and she was talking about how quickly and how easy it is to write a book. And what I have heard about writing a book, it's hard. It's a lot of work, And I won't lie, like, the way people make it is this massive thing, and this is the epitome of make or break, but you have to get your book out there. I know we look at writers like J.R. Tolkien writing a book, for 10 years, and that's the perception that we have, that it takes so long. And so my mom made it like quick, easy. And she didn't know. And then I just started writing. I was like, Kayla, you've had this idea since you were there. Why not start? Your mom said, and she was having a book launch, I think, for her new book. And for the students, if they finished their book, I think she gave us 6 months. I had 6 months.
What was that book's title, your mom's book?
So she had the book, I'm trying to think, she has a lot. Her first book was called Success for the Puzzle Teenager, which was a book that influenced me a lot growing up. I was a preteen when that book came out, and then reading it through my teenage years. She was writing a kid's book. It was called Action Zabor.
Okay.
And it's kind of a biblical action book for children.
Nice.
And so that was what she was releasing at the time. I think right now, I think she has 5. I'm not sure. She writes so quickly and she does it so well. Cordom.
AfrifoodLinks, okay.
Yeah. And so she did this, and I wrote, I think, the first 3 chapters, and then it just flowed. And she was like, okay, now that I know you're writing, let's finish. And the book was really an essence of this girl, which was kind of, I wouldn't say where I was, but where I knew a lot of people were. She was in between. She already knew that she was going to study law. She already knew her parents were super happy. Her mom's a lawyer. It's just everything is working out. She's going to study. I based it in the States, which was a very interesting way from being Namibia. I had to visualize a lot. I had luckily been in the States, in LA, for a month. So I kind of got a gist of how things worked. And it was so this girl's name is America Wilson. And she is 17 and she's going to go study at Harvard University. You know, everyone at Harvard. So I still look at those things, but she was going to study law like her mom did. And she was bright and she was, so successful. And I related a lot to that, because when you're so successful and in school, people, they're like, what is Kayla going to do next? Or what is America going to do next? And law just seemed at Harvard, wow. But she wanted to write. Her heart was journalism and her heart was to do something creative. And to tell that to her parents was very difficult. So she then goes on a road trip with her family, her parents, and this other boy named Noah and his family. And Noah's type of personality is polar opposite. He's like, go with the flow, see where life takes. And so together on this road trip I made it from LA to San Francisco, that stretch along the coast. And so it was this idea that through this whole process, she learns and understands that it doesn't help that she goes and studies this if it's not what her heart wants. Yeah. And so that's why it's called Our Story. It's her story, actually. But Noah is a big part of shaping that story. So then it becomes our story. And so that is kind of the story of this book. And it's an adventure that she goes on of self-discovery as well, of who she is and who she wants to become. And so that was the idea of this book, that I really wanted to get across, that, that it is important to listen to your heart, because your mind and your heart, they argue a lot, right? But if you don't feel it in your heart, you can't convince your mind, you can't convince your heart as well that this is what you want to do. And I think that's why a lot of people, after a while, they just drop what they were doing, because they were like, it's never what I loved. And so that was until I was 17, coming to 18, almost graduating, and still not knowing what I wanted to study. So I think I really channeled that into that book, and it helped me process my own thoughts while writing it.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I like that you've chosen a fiction book to sort of bring the message across, because most people kind of know what to do. Yeah. But stories sort of condenses everything, and a lot of people can relate to that story, I think. Yeah. So pursue your passion. And I think what you think about the idea that passion is something that you keep doing much of, and eventually it becomes a passion, or do you think that everybody's sort of innately born with something that they like to do?
That's a nice one. I think passion is what drives you, 100%. I don't think if you don't have passion for something, you're never going to keep it up. It's actually passion that keeps you from quitting. And I do believe that there comes a point when, you have a passion about something. And some people are very passionate about it, and they're gifted in it. They're out and out a musician, or they're out and out a doctor, and they can try to deny that in themselves, but it will always come out one way or another. And so I definitely agree with you that passion later on drives you. Passion can become a career. I think I read somewhere where it said something about if you are passionate about something and it's your career, you won the jackpot. Like you're the luckiest person in the world, because you're never going to get bored of what you're doing, you know? And if you're passionate about something, you always find new ways of enjoying what you do. But yeah, no, I think 100%. That's why the biggest thing, whenever I get into something, I try to find, what do I love about it? Like, what am I passionate about in this thing? It could be the smallest thing, but if it is that small thing that keeps me going till the project is finished, until something, then it is that. And I encourage everyone to find a passion in something. You might be working a job where you're like, oh, I hate this job. But, you know, find something within the job that you really like. Like my mom, she's doing teaching. She's a HOD. And she says sometimes, she's like, oh, I'm too old for this. You know, I'm done. Like I've done this so long, but she's passionate. She does motivational speaking on the side and then does all these things, writing, author. And so she brings that across. Whether it is she writes a little booklet for the kids to read in English, or she does that. She has found her passion within teaching, because yes, she's a speaker, but she's found it that she's also a teacher, and she finds so much passion in bringing that across to younger audiences. And so that's what I would say. Passion is a big thing. And if you can find it and you can run with it, then you're the luckiest person in the world, because you'll love it.
For sure. What's your relationship with writing? What are the benefits that you've sort of discovered from it? For me, I've seen that the more, because when you're thinking, it's sort of like your thoughts are disorganized. You know? They're not fitting into specific boxes. But when you sit down and think, you sort of direct them a little bit more. But when you write, it's easier for you to remember the lessons, especially if you put it in a story.
It's true.
So you know, okay, this you can easily trace the story. Like for the Bible, for instance, it's like we mostly remember it because most of it is just stories, stories with lessons, with lessons. And what's your relationship with writing? How has that helped you?
I love that last part that you said, stories we remember. My mom, again, she has this saying that I stick with it now. I've claimed it as well, where stories sell. And stories are things that people remember. If you want to convey anything to a human being, convey it in a story. It's like, it touches your heartstrings, you know? That's why when someone is trying to get you to donate to something, or they tell you a story about a little girl that needs this donation, or they work it in that. And writing has allowed me to, because sometimes I think writing is the most important. If you do not write what you're thinking down, you'll forget about it. And so whenever I've always been a journal girl, always write a jot. I always, like right now in my bag, I even have a notebook just in case I needed it here, and a pen. It's just part of me, because like you said, you have all these thoughts and they're jumbling, but the moment you put them down on paper, it's like, okay, I can link this and I can link that. And then the story starts going. So how it was, if I was writing, I would be sitting in the car and I'm like, oh, that's a perfect idea. I would take out my phone, go to notes. My notes is so flooded. I think it takes the most storage in my phone. But then I would write this and I would be like, I don't know when I'm going to use that. And then I would think, oh, that would be perfect. If it's a scene I saw, or somebody is doing something so sweet, or a gesture or what, I'll jot that down. Or if I, like right now, if you say something, I'll be like, wow, that's powerful. I'm going to write that down. Quote Nate, you know, it's like, and so that for me, writing, it's made writing very easy. You know, I take experiences from life and I jot them down, and I'm like, okay, I might use this one day, or I might never use this, but this is, and like you said, with the reference to the Bible, those stories we remember. I mean, as even from kids all the way up, you remember those stories because the stories have a meaning to you, you know. And that's what I think writing is. If you take what you have in here and what's out there and you jot it on paper, it's more concrete. And it's like you remember it better. That's why people always say, I still believe this to this day. People said, like, if you write in blue ink, you remember it better for your exams. I always write in blue.
And
blue is my blue. If someone gives me a black pen, I'm till this day I'm like, no, it's okay. And it's just something that I've decided. And through that, your mind is so powerful. If you write it down, and this is you'll remember it better, and it's just how it is.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I can also see it with you, like the way you sort of like structure your thoughts and explain yourself. You know, it's you can see that you have been journaling or sort of jotting things down.
Yeah.
You know, so it's your brain kind of sees in pictures. So you probably see words, and then you can structure them in paragraphs and sentences.
That's amazing.
It's easier for people to
understand
what you're saying.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that's the biggest thing with someone that's creative. You usually visualize something before you write it down.
Yeah.
And so in architecture, we have this funny thing. It's like you can visualize something and you can draw something, but when you have to talk about it to a client, it has to be on writing. It's like the writing has to be there. And writing, like you said, helps me formulate these amazing pictures that I have in my brain and then bring them back so that I can convey it to someone else that can't see what I'm seeing. But then they can read it and then understand, oh, that's what she's seeing. Okay, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. AfrifoodLinks. How did you get into it?
Like every 21-year-old on social media, through social media, actually. So I'm trying to think now, when did I see it? December. So December, I was scrolling through social media and I saw the ad. And so I saw Future African, I forgot the handle now, but that's what it like read. And it was like, AfrifoodLinks is looking for a youth ambassador to spark conversation around sustainable food systems. And so there were two ads actually that I applied for. The one that really got me was the storytelling one. They were looking for an ambassador for storytelling. And I thought, okay, I like content creation and I like storytelling. This is perfect. So I applied to both. And then the AfrifoodLinks one, they were looking for content creation around food sustainability. And so I was like, okay, let me try. But at that stage, I was like, I have no idea anything about agriculture. You know about agriculture in Europe, but like, I was like, whoa, that's a bit. So I didn't know. And then I got a call back in February. They sent me an email. They're like, hi, Kaylah. They actually WhatsApped me because they made a mistake with my email. So I wasn't responding. And they're like, why is she not responding? And then they messaged me. I was like, they're like, can you do an interview today? I know it's short notice. I was like, yeah, sure thing. And so I had to be like, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I apply for? Let me just make sure and get it. And I was like, this is actually so cool. When I went through the website and I checked everything beforehand even, and I was really interested in it. And then, so when I did the interview, I was kind of nervous and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. But I'm a good speaker and I believed in myself and I knew that I can put whatever I put my mind to, I can do. So when I did the interview, I actually had to do 2 interviews. I was only supposed to do one, but some of the other ladies couldn't be there for the first interview that I did. They wanted to see me a second time. And so the second time, I met an amazing lady from South Africa, and she is a doctorate. She has a doctorate in human rights. She's a human rights lawyer. So I knew that she was going to drill me because she wanted to see, is this the real deal? Is this? And I had an amazing conversation with her, really about food sustainability in Namibia. And then also, a lot of the times, these people want to know about you personally, which was something very amazing. You know, usually it's like, oh, what have you done? What is this? But they're like, no, we want to know the type of person you are. Like, what are you going to bring to this? What is the creative aspect of it? And I had to go through, they even put me in scenarios. They were like, you have 0 money. What are you going to do? You have to do an activation. Look at your room. What are you going to do? And I was like, I have paint. I have a table. I have a chair. This is what I can do. Quickly, come up with the activation. And those were the things they really test how quickly on the spot you can think. And they're really trying to understand, can you be creative? Can you, bring this message across? Because it would be easy to give it to someone that has studied agriculture and has, in that line of work, but then is perhaps not as creative. And that's what I love about creative people. It's like you give them something, give them a day. You tell them, okay, this is what you're going to do. It's the same with acting. Yeah. You are going to play a doctor. You have no idea about medicine, but the next day you will talk like a doctor because it's,
Yeah.
And so I was very, very honored to be part of when they announced that I was the AfrifoodLinks Youth Ambassador of the city of Windhoek. It was I was very honored, and we are 15 around Africa, and we are strategically in specific cities. And then we're 5 in Europe. So there's 5 European and 15 African youth ambassadors for
Wow.
AfrifoodLinks.
That's pretty
And
cool.
so it's a project that's been running it's going to run for 4 years, but I think we're in our 2nd year already. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. When I look at it from outside, I have an idea of what it does, right? But I don't have sort of like concrete.
Yeah.
How would you say, what do they focus on mostly?
What do they focus on? So AfrifoodLinks in general falls under ICLEI Africa, and ICLEI Africa is the NGO. So what ICLEI does is they want to create sustainable governments. Okay, so it could even be municipalities and then upper government levels. And so ICLEI is around the world. So the NGO that I specifically, the section is in Africa, which is amazing. So their headquarters are in Cape Town. And so the idea with AfrifoodLinks is one of their projects, is one of their initiatives to create, okay, we're talking about sustainable governments, but let's focus narrow into food, okay? And how food systems work within the city that we're operating, for example, in Windhoek. And so the idea is to make these food systems more sustainable so that we don't have issues where people are without food. You know, we don't have food insecurity. People can grow food in the urban setting, you know, and that people become more sustainable for themselves. Because if you have people starting to grow fruits and vegetables and all these things, then you can allow them to sustain themselves, as well as then they can also start bartering or selling. And then you create basically a circular economy where everything works together.
Nice.
And so the idea of AfrifoodLinks is us as youth ambassadors, our job is to create that awareness. So we work with the city of Windhoek, which is very close to where we are currently.
Yeah.
And so they have a project. Each municipality has a project that they're working on. The project will officially be signed off in November by the European Union, because they are the ones giving the funds for this pilot project. It's a pilot project, so it means quite relatively small, but it's a project to start the momentum to go. And so my job is to make sure that people are aware of what we're doing before the project comes and then continues, you know.
Nice. How do you make people aware, especially the youth? I think obviously the old people sort of have an idea of planting in their garden, herding sheep, for instance, and stuff like that. How would you sell this idea across to a young person?
This is where the fun comes in. I like to say the fun, because social media is so powerful and you can use it in so many various ways. For me, it was always, how can I make a topic that in other people's minds, like who wants to talk about food? You know, it's like, most young people are like, policies, politics, just sounds like that. How do you come across to them to make it interesting? And that's where I had these ideas for even like having videos where I go to specific places that I have chosen. And it's like, I want to show them that other young people, they're making their own stuff. You know, they're planting, they're doing this, they're helping where they can. I mean, I saw amazing Ruben. I don't know if you know him. He's amazing. You should interview once. I think his surname is Lambrecht, if I'm not. Yes, he has like the Cindy the baboon as his best friend. He's doing very well. He had a GoFundMe page for drought relief, for farmers in Namibia, and it acquired over 50,000 Namibian dollars. And those are the type of content or creators or people I would like to interact with, so that we can show them that young people have a space to make a difference. And so for me, it's always been like finding various ways, even if it's me going to Agra or going to Pupkewitz Mega Bold and buying plant containers and starting to plant my own garden, and then encouraging others to do the same. Because the influence that we have as young people, we don't realize sometimes how powerful it is. I've had people come up to me and they were like, I've never actually looked at food sustainability, but because you're in it, I'm now starting to think about these things. I always say food is so, so important. Without it, people will be angry. I'm telling you 100%.
For sure.
So the way we talk about climate change is important in the way. And in this food sustainability, we look at all those things. We look at the climate. For example, Namibia is quite dry. We need rain in order to plant and stuff. But there aren't there are ways that you can work around water. And that's what we're talking with the municipality is how do we get people to start producing in the urban environment. I would like to see in these skyscrapers one day these plants or vines, flowing and being a green city in that way. And that is kind of the vision that I want is young people need to see this and realize, whoa, this is actually super important. There are people that don't have food, but we're such a small population. How do we avoid that, And it's like someone once told me, and I always think about it, is that he was a foreigner and he was like, Windhoek has a lot of trees. You guys have so much trees, but none of them bear fruit.
Yeah,
and I was like,
it's a metaphor in itself.
And I was like, that is so true. If you go to Rundu, there's like mango trees everywhere. And I mean, these are the small things that we have to start looking at. I mean, it changed my perspective. And now when I'm looking around and I'm seeing someone planting a fast growing tree, I'm like, no, man, we can plant a fruit tree, And so these are the conversations that young people have to have. And we have so much influence. The census came out. We're 70-something percent, 71, I think, percent of Namibia's population is youth.
Yeah.
So that means me as a youth ambassador, that's a lot of young people to talk to. And so I am learning as I'm going. This is the first time AfrifoodLinks, and this is the first time Italy is actually doing something with youth ambassadors. So they're learning, I'm learning, and it's a fun journey to experience and to use social media to expand awareness for these things. And so through a lot of youth involvement, I want to involve as much young people in this project as possible, because I can only do so much, but they can do so much more. And through, So
I like that. It's like, obviously nowadays people are more interested in like technology and everything, because that's what you see most of the time in social media and stuff. So food is kind of like water, you just, when you want to drink, you just go to the tap,
Exactly.
But you're not sure how that water comes to, gets to the tap all the way. And like with food, if you were to give me like a practical example, I just want to sort of like picture it in my head, because I obviously don't have an idea of what goes on in there. Like, let's say Namibia, for instance, it's very dry. There's not a lot of planting, and we don't produce that much of our own stuff. How would they go in implementing something that would they give, if we're just thinking at very, very low, would they give people seeds to plant, for example? Or what's the strategy?
So definitely. So during, let's say, a month ago, I have to always think, a month ago, we did the AfrifoodLinks city to city exchange. So we had people come from our neighboring partners, such as from Kenya, we had people come from Kisumu, and from Morocco, we had people come from Chef Chawan, and then from Italy, we had people come from Milan. And so the idea was we took them around the city to show them the food systems and show them how it operates. And from their eye viewpoint, we found the loopholes, we found the mistakes, and we found, oh, these are things we need to look at, and these are things we need to change. And it was so amazing. Within that, we sat and we came up with a project. And so I can't speak too much about the project because it's only being rolled out in November, and it might change. But it's definitely around, the urban agriculture scene. How do we get people, like you said, to start planting, especially in areas that they need? We have a big informal settlements. I think Windhoek is now 30% of Windhoek is informal settlements. And so in those areas, there's not always electricity and there's not always water. So what can we do? And this is the idea, is to provide people with access to perhaps seeds, right? That's what I'm trying to also do, is to get schools and try to work with young people and see how we can do this. And that idea of making it more easy for people to go to Agra, and you just go to Agra and you say, can I please have for the, AfrifoodLinks or whatever, can we have manure? Can we have compost? Can we have these things to plant? And making it so much easier for people to start planting gardens, to start doing this, not only in a household level, but perhaps institutional level. I mean, if you look at government buildings, there's so much land and so much open space that you could actually just have a bed of carrots, tomatoes, and we've also noticed that a lot of people, if you go to single quarters or you go to the markets in Katatura, the biggest thing, there's just three big things that you'll see: onions, tomatoes, and green peppers. That's the majority. But there are so much other vegetables that we haven't tried that might even grow better in the soil and the fertile we have. And then also getting people more equipped. That is also something we want to start looking into is, yes, okay, you give the people this, but how do they plant? And this is where I love the thing is I love learning from older people. I know young people are always like, oh, older people, need to start moving out, but I learn from them 100%. I have a neighbor and he is incredible. This man plants in his house. His house is like a greenhouse, and he sells his produce to the market, right? To shops. I've seen these stuff, and I'm like, he's a foreigner. He's actually South Korean. He's Korean, and so I'm like, if he can do it, right? I had my I call her my mare, which is my aunt-in-law's mother, and she's Filipino. And I remember growing up and going to her house, and she could grow anything. She had green hands, mango trees, papaya. The papaya was even hanging. I don't even know how she had that time. We're talking about maybe 10 plus years ago. Yeah. And these are techniques that they have acquired. There's nothing as the soil is bad and it's dry. There's always ways. And so that's kind of what we're trying to see is like, how are we going to do this? Like, maybe there's different ways that we can do this, not the conventional way, but bring something new that people can be like, there's no excuse not to plant. We don't give people excuse, but we're like, there are ways and we will try to like provide you these ways. And so, so this idea of also getting people that are experienced in growing stuff, teaching, classes type of thing, to get people to be like, oh, I'm very interested. If you give people those access to the seeds, to the learning, to all these things, they'll be more likely to run with it fully, because sometimes people just don't know where to start. Yeah. And that's always the case. Yeah. And so our job as AfrifoodLinks, we are going to try, and with the municipality, try to make it as easy as possible to run out this pilot project so that everyone can be involved. In the beginning, because it's a pilot project, it might be a small group of people, but a small group then becomes a bigger group, and so on. It spreads like wildfire through Windhoek, that everyone is now involved in urban agriculture or making sure that we are creating food sustainability. For the example, the city of Windhoek is also working on a project, but I can't also speak too much, that involves what happens to, because we're talking about a food system, what happens to your banana peels, your potato peels after you throw them and they land in a municipality dump site. We're talking about 11.4% of general waste is food waste. So, and then we talk about that and we're like, but you can make compost out of it. I recently posted a video of a company in Swakop that is doing that, Cosdec, and they are doing that, turning food waste into compost and manure. And so then you have a full circle. And these are the ideas that AfrifoodLinks has allowed us to start looking at and seeing, okay, here's an opportunity. How do we do this? And these are the questions that we're trying to answer as we go through this process.
Nice. Yeah. I like it. You seem very passionate about it. so I think they have the right person. You obviously went into this oblivious as I am about the whole thing, right? But now, what were some things that sort of triggered your interest? Like, oh, I didn't know this about food. That you do know that.
No, there was a lot of things. I think initially, when I was so glad that we did the city-to-city exchange, because there were some places of Windhoek I haven't even personally been to. And it made me realize how important it is. I think, I thought, like you said, people go to a tap and they're like, oh, here's the water, let's drink it. During this process, I had been able to go to the water reclamation plant, Embark, and that's where 30% of Namibia's drinkable water comes from. And that is a process of taking water that is not drinkable and converting it into drinkable water. I never knew. I just opened the tap and I drank and I was like, oh, cool, water. But I did not understand how much effort goes into these things. And I think that's where I think having a youth ambassador is great, because what I see, I can tell people, and it's like, this is where it comes from, that lovely bride that you're having, where is it coming from? How are these animals being taken care of? What is the process of getting these animals from point A to B? These are all things that work in the food system. And that's what makes a sustainable food system, is if we know as consumers where the food comes from, we will definitely then have a better outlook and let us say we're not going to waste as much food. Food waste is also a big thing. And that's where I like, for example, Woolworths South Africa here. And I know that a lot of the food that is close to expiry date, it's still good food. Like, it's, if you know Woolworths is top quality in everything they do. And so what they do is they take that food to schools, and kids that don't have food, they give the food to the families and stuff like that, which is amazing. That is also food sustainability. And so that is kind of like where I have learned so much through this entire process of learning, oh wow, there are people that do these jobs. I think with young people, we all wanted to move to service sectors, and that was a big thing. Move to tertiary sectors and service, and then primary sectors are like, that's for older people. But I know a lot of my friends are in agriculture, and when they went to study agriculture, I said, really? Like, I was very surprised. But now I'm like, wow. Like, now I have a deep found appreciation for what happens in these sectors, because without these sectors, we can't operate. Without food, we cannot. And the fact of the matter that there are still people that are hungry and starving and don't have enough to eat is unfair, because that shouldn't be the case. Yeah. And so if at the end, if every Namibian can then maybe even be self-sufficient on that, or at least produce their daily meals, then job well done. It's a step forward in the right direction.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Yeah, so you're 21.
I'm 21.
But okay, you sound really wise for 21 years old.
I get that a lot. Yeah.
No, it's true. Like, on the fun side of things, what you do for fun? Obviously, you're probably gonna say writing.
Yeah.
Writing, content creation.
Yeah.
Let's say that's work.
Yeah, that's work.
Yeah.
What I do for fun. This is an interesting thing. I think a lot of my life I've had to get a work-life balance, because if I don't, I'll be fully in work. Yeah. But for me, it's just really, I enjoy just like researching. If it would be like, I'll watch documentaries in my free time. I'll just enjoy. I like to rest as well. I think it's so important. If I feel like, things are getting too much, I'll rest. I like going out. I am a cafe girl through and through. If I can just get a coffee and sit and just have a conversation with someone. That's my friends are right now, my closest friends are not in the country. Wow. So the one is in Ireland, the other one is in Johannesburg. So it's very difficult not being with your friends, but we make it work. FaceTimes here and there. And I just really enjoy just learning hobbies, learning something, whether it's painting, whether it's I'm trying to learn keyboard, and I say I've been trying because I've been trying for a long time.
Really? Okay.
But you know what? I'm getting somewhere. Yeah. Well, one day I'll come play, So I always like learning new things. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I'm going to places, going to markets, seeing what's going on. I enjoy it. I am ambivert, so I'm like a lot extroverted, I think, and then also introverted. I like my alone time. I spend a lot of time with my family. My family and I do a lot of things together. My cousins as well, we're super, super close. So if it's on my free time, I'll go have a date with them. We'll go swimming. I enjoy people. I enjoy spending time with people. And I think that's the biggest thing. On my off days, I would like to spend time with people that I love. And, just get away from sometimes the work. Yeah. But, surprisingly, I've seen my work as a hobby. I've enjoyed it as a hobby. It's kind of weird, but I'm so happy when I get to do content, even though I'm frustrated and I'm like, just throw the laptop in the ocean or something when it's not working with me. I find it so relaxing. I could do that for hours, And so it's really about work-life balance, like you said. So those are my hobbies. I really enjoy just doing, I would say, anything that just allows me to like relax and then also like just be in the moment. Yeah. And I think that for me is important.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. I usually end with asking people to sort of give advice to their 21-year-old self, it's not going to work this time because you're 21. Right? So what's your plans for the future? How would you plan the future? Or do you have any plans for the future? What do you expect from the future?
Oh, I expect amazing things from the future. I am a very optimistic person that no matter what outcome in life, whatever is happening, it always gets better, but you have to make it better, you know? And so for me, I used to be I would plan for the future, 20 years, 10 years in advance. And then life happens and you realize that's not ideally what you want to do. So I take it day by day now, which is, it's very difficult for me. I do still have dreams and aspirations, but I always keep them very close to my heart. And I know day by day they will come, and I've seen it come into fruition. And I just want to tell people listening is that just make sure to do what you love in life. And it could be anything, and find the positive. I have this thing, always look on the bright side. And I always try to do that. As much as there's so much negative stuff out there, and there's so much problems, and I always encourage people to be the light wherever they go, because I think it's super important. I mean, I don't want to be somebody that if someone's negative, I'm yeah, same bro. I want to be no, you know what? It might not be the best what's happening, but it will get better. And sometimes people just need someone to be positive that day. I know a lot of the times where I've come in, I've always said, I'm going to change people's perspectives on how the world is, because people are always the world is against me, or the world is this. I don't think so. I think you can go out there and you can change the world for the better. And that is my ultimate quote. It's, there's this quote, I have two of my favorites. The one is from Steve Jobs. Love him. I love tech people. I just think they're so cool. I wish I could be a tech person. Who knows? Maybe I will. But Steve Jobs has this thing. It's the crazy ones who think they can change the world are the ones that do.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be a little bit crazy to think and people will tell you, but that's impossible. I always say no. Nothing is impossible. If you can do it, you can, And then the other one I like is, and I think that relates a lot to what I'm doing with AfrifoodLinks, is ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, by John F. Kennedy. 100%. My dad's favorite quote. I've stolen that as well now. But I believe it 100%. I sometimes understand that things may not be the way you want them. And I know a lot of young people are very upset with the government. It's this is not working. That's not, all these things. But how are we going to change it? We cannot just sit back and let it just go and say, okay, we don't want to work with them. They don't understand us. That's not true. They really want to understand us. And in these spaces, as the youth ambassador, I've realized older people want to learn from us young people. They want to, understand. So I just say, just not always what is the problem, but what is the solution? And in life, I always try to find the solution in everything. Even if I can't find the full solution, I always try to see, okay, this is the situation. How can I make this better? Even if it's a tiny bit, I know I've done what I'm supposed to do, and someone else will take it further. And so never ever, my last one is never ever say that there's not opportunity. I mean, you're a prime example that you can create your own opportunity. This podcast that you're doing is incredible. And so people are yeah, but I need someone else to do this. That's not how life works. Life is about you taking the opportunities or what you get and then making the most of them, And that's why you get people that are super successful in life. And it's because they took those opportunities and they ran with them. Even it's someone says, even if someone gives you a pinky, you take the whole hand, That's kind of the thing. Yeah. And so I would encourage people, young or old or whoever, it's never too late to make a difference in this world. And that would be my final say. Yeah.
Well, wow. Okay. Like I said, you're way too wise for your age. Yeah. And it's I think most things work with I think someone mentioned something most things in life is almost like physics.
Yes.
Like inertia. It's if something is rolling, it will continue to roll unless something stops it, a force comes into it. So I think the trajectory that you kind of have, the pace you have now, if you stick to that, you would become. I mean, you would become really, excellent in most of the stuff that you do.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. That's so sweet. Made my day.
For sure. Where can people find you if they want to connect you?
People can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. So all my handles are usually just my name. It's Kaylah Cordom. I think except my Instagram has a 04 because I was born on the 4th of March. Hint, hint. But yeah, that's where you can find me. You can always hit me a DM. I'm always responsive. I like responding, and even if I don't, please excuse me, but I will definitely respond. LinkedIn, I also joined LinkedIn because that's apparently what you're supposed to do when you reach 21 and in that space. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can just also message me on LinkedIn if you want to, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'll follow you back. So yeah, that's where you can get me, and keep a lookout on the space because I will be posting a lot about AfrifoodLinks. And I'm super excited to see what the future holds. And I know that it's going to be amazing. I know that in Namibia, I get excited every day when I see the developments happening in this beautiful country. And I just know it's our job to make sure that these developments go further, and as well as protecting this beautiful country. So, yeah.
Nice. I think I can put the links in the description. Right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. About DMs, it should be proper DMs though.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, please. If you want to slide, I am single. No, please. But yeah,
sure.
proper DMs would be nice.
Good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.